a realtor helping you buy and sell in Charleston, South Carolina, Lauren Delamater. Delamater.
You got
I
it.
feel like I messed it up. No, I got it. Good, good. Lauren's joining the podcast. Thanks so much, Lauren. Appreciate you joining.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to be here today.
Charleston is near and dear to our hearts here on the podcast because I am based in the Charlotte area, not too far from you. And Charleston is actually where my wife and I spent our honeymoon. So it's
Oh, I
always
love hearing
got a
that.
special place in our heart. Beautiful area of the country, so much going for it. So much diversity as far as real estate and types of homes and geographic. Of course, the low country and the coastline is just some of the best, most scenic areas of the country to live. So looking forward to diving in a little bit about Charleston. Lauren, before we get into real estate and business, I always like to start these conversations out with a little bit of a background on the guest. Specifically, what inspired you to pursue a career in real estate? We found it to be a bit of a winding road, the path to selecting real estate as a career choice. So would love to hear about what inspired you.
Absolutely. I have grown up kind of in the real estate world. My grandfather was actually a realtor with ReMax for 30 plus years. Watched him, in the olden days of printing these huge stacks of papers from the MLS. I just was always so intrigued by it. My parents did a lot of investing in, I would say 2005 to, 2008, 9. Was a big part of that. I was a teenager at the time, so just helped them with a lot of that. The real estate has always intrigued me. It wasn't until 8 years ago, though, I kind of went down an entrepreneurial path. I owned a wedding planning company, owned a cafe with my mom. I had my kids very young, so that pushed me right into the business world at 19 years old when, my friends were all in college. So real estate is scary because you start at zero. I always wanted to do it, but we had to get to a point where, we could be okay, my husband and I should say, with, me starting at zero. So finally made the plunge about 8.5 years ago, I guess. And, have never looked back. It's glamorous in some ways and extremely unglamorous in others, but it's a great career if you're a self-starter and can, force yourself to sit down every day and put the work in.
Absolutely, yeah, glamorous in some ways and very unglamorous. I'm glad that you pointed that out as well. The industry, we as a whole, and are so good at sharing the glamorous aspects
Yes.
of the career, but so much more goes into it behind the scenes that is really uh, it can be very difficult and tedious, and a lot of it's boring. But
It
at the end
is.
of the
That is the
day,
truth.
we love serving our clients um, and guiding them to a successful transaction conclusion. So, did you begin your career in Charleston?
I did. We moved to Charleston when about 12 and a half years ago when my youngest son was 3 months old, which I do not recommend moving with a newborn. So I worked in the wedding world here initially, actually selling couture wedding gowns and realized it was time to kind of just make a career shift. I've always loved the process of sales and kind of the peeling the layers of the onion back with clients and stuff. And again, always had real estate in the back of my mind. It's just a scary leap to make, especially with three kids and my husband and I were very young and just trying to figure it all out. So yeah, it started in Charleston. It's the only market I really know, a whole lot about. I've only worked here. You pick up bits and pieces, on social media and stuff, but Charleston's what I know.
Well, that's a good market to know for sure, and a great market to work in. What is it about? What would you say? And I didn't prepare you for this question, so I apologize for throwing a curveball. But what are a couple of your favorite parts about living and working in Charleston?
I think I appreciate it so much because I lived in such an opposite area. I'm from the Chicago area, so you can only be outside 6 months out of the year enjoyably. I guess you can be outside all year, but it's very unenjoyable. So just the mild climate, I love being outside. We're a very outdoorsy family. Seeing a dolphin jumping as I'm driving over the bridge on my way to the office. I mean, those are things, it's out of a movie. I remember when we first drove through the area that we live now, and my jaw was on the floor. It felt like something out of The Notebook. Then come to find out that's where The Notebook was filmed. It's just, it's a magical place. It really is. I get some pushback on social media from locals that, say, stop telling people to move here or, whatever it is. But it's it's hard to beat. It has great schools, it has the ocean. You've got these, Michelin star restaurants in Mount Pleasant and downtown. So it's just got a little bit of everything. And I think, we're consistently voted number one best city by so many publications. It's hard to beat. It feels like you're on vacation every day. That's what I always tell people.
Yeah, that's the vibe I always get when I visit Charleston, for sure. You can we talk about being an entrepreneur and that entrepreneurial mindset for a second?
Hmm.
You mentioned that, and I that really is one of my hot buttons because I firmly believe that to be a successful real estate agent, to be successful as a real estate sales person, agent, broker, whatever they call it in the state in which you're in, I think it requires very much an entrepreneurial mindset. You are, even though we're affiliated with a brokerage and we play by their rules and are kind of guided a little bit to, uh, conform to their brand standards and that sort of thing. Of course, we, abide by the commission and all the laws, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for our business, for the most part, our lead generation, and for our income and for the outcomes of our transactions, both listings and purchases. So, what is it? What are some similarities? What are some commonalities that you see between being a real estate agent, being successful, and being an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think they parallel perfectly. It's you have to be able to wake up every day and set a schedule for yourself. I mean, there's no 9 to 5, there's no one checking to see if you're at your desk. So that's the biggest thing when I talk to people. I get a lot of messages, usually from young women wanting to sit down and kind of hear about real estate. They're thinking about becoming a realtor. And that's the first thing I say is just that self-motivation, because there isn't a lot of times anyone holding you accountable. Um, you've got to be a person that kind of sees that big picture and that end goal and can back up and schedule your days and your weeks and your months to kind of get to that. Um, but I think also, being open-minded, open to change, a lot of things in real estate, I think we're in a massive shift right now. And, when you own a business, you're always looking for ways to grow and improve. And again, it's very easy to not do that when you're a business of one, but I think applying some of those same principles that any business owner would, you'll stay, top of mind or stay cutting edge. It can be easy to fall back into patterns and poor behavior in real estate because it is just you. Um, and then I would say not being afraid to take risk. I think a lot of people don't realize that it does take a little bit of money to kind of get yourself going and to do it the right way, especially in a market like Charleston that is, quote unquote, more luxury. Our price point is higher than a lot of other parts of the country. So your branding, your look, your materials, your presentation, you have to be sharp and you have to look the part as you would in any other business. Um, I think anyone that approaches it like a business will be very successful and not just a hobby. There's a lot of hobby real estate agents, and that, maybe that is for somebody. But if you want to really be successful and support your family or change the trajectory of your future, you have to treat it like a business. Pretend there's someone watching over your shoulder, a boss, or whatever, and operate as you would in that case.
You mentioned the word risk, and I think that that's really important to underscore as well, because I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why not everyone is suited to be for the real estate industry, to be a real estate agent, just as not everyone's suited to be an entrepreneur. Kevin O'Leary, in an interview I saw with him recently, and I'm not a Shark Tank fan, although
I love
I'm
him.
sure I'm sure it's a great show, but I do like him, and um, he was asked this question, pointed that you know, how do you know if you're not supposed to be an entrepreneur? And he said 2/3 of Americans should not be entrepreneurs. I personally think it's a bigger
I would
portion
agree.
of people that should not be entrepreneurs. But his biggest reason was that you have to. Most people are not willing to take that first step, to take the risk. That folks are mostly business or risk averse, which is fine and understandable. And he went on and on. I might even have a link in the description to that particular. That was the Iced Coffee Hour podcast. It was a really good podcast, really good. I think is worth watching for anyone who's thinking about making the leap into real estate, because there are so many parallels, as you said, between
Hmm.
being as a business owner and being a realtor. To me, they're one and the same.
Agreed.
Let's talk a little bit about your expertise and who, like the type of work that you specialize in there in the Charleston market. Obviously, most agents, we're all going to say, generally speaking, that we're open to working with anyone if they're as long as it makes sense and it's the right fit. But where do you really shine? What would you say would be your zone of genius there in the Charleston market?
My niche is families relocating to the Charleston area. That's what my family and I did. I have three kids in the school systems. We've gone through the public school system from pre-K to my oldest is a freshman in college. So we've done it all. I know all about the schools. I know what families want in their neighborhood. I can talk to you about commute times. I can tell you the best daycares, the best place to grocery shop, just all those things. So I would say that's my niche. That's where I shine. That's definitely where I focus my social media on. And it's a good place to have that as a niche because it seems like every other person I talk to is wanting to move to Charleston or Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant specifically is probably, if we niche down even further, it's a little suburb just over the bridge. Um, just a, picture perfect little area. A lot of families seek that out just because of the school system. So yeah, that's definitely who I would say the majority of my business focuses on. But like you
Hmm.
said, if anybody seems like a good fit or, we work with them, of course. And with my husband
Sure.
joining me too, we'll be able to just kind of spread out a little bit further, which will be really helpful.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too in a second. You made a recent business change. Your husband's joining you in the business as well, and you're now affiliated with Compass.
We are, yes, very excited about that.
I can actually, it's on topic. I could skip ahead to that. Let's talk a
Sure.
little bit about the inspiration for joining Compass, and what's that transition been like so far. I realize it's been a very short amount of time, but what do you think so far, and what's that process been like?
I started my career with ReMax, so kind of that bigger national brokerage. So I'm familiar with that model, but then I was really craving just more of an intimate experience. So I worked for 2 years for a smaller all-female brokerage downtown Charleston, and it was wonderful. I mean, the people I met, I'm a firm believer that the more people you surround yourself, you pick up these little tidbits of knowledge and wisdom from everybody. So I learned so much there. But my husband, number one, not being a female, we had to figure something out there. And I think I've just been seeing such a shift with technology and real estate. And I felt a little bit like I was getting left behind, just not having the bigger systems that a larger company can create. And Compass to me was just at the forefront of all of that. I did talk to a few big brokerages, but the the technology that they provide, the fact that they built it and own it is really intriguing to me, or was really intriguing to me, especially with everything going on with, this Zillow shakeup and all of that. So I would say that this access to systems, the streamlining, the AI, all of that is really what drew us to Compass. And then the ability to be, a husband and wife team was exciting for us.
Yeah, systems are that's another aspect of small business ownership or running a business that's so important, and a topic that comes up quite a bit in my conversation with successful real estate agents because of the similarity in how we have to run our businesses to
Hmm.
that of what an entrepreneur would do. So that doesn't surprise me, and I've always known Compass. I don't know technically specifically how they differentiate themselves with the technology that they make available to their affiliates, but I have always known of them to be a brokerage that uh, really resides on the cutting edge of emerging technology and really has found innovative ways to utilize it in the real estate business. So that makes sense as well. But I definitely wanted to underscore you're mentioning systems and how important that was and in making the decision to go to Compass.
Yes, putting systems into my business was something I really started focusing on about 2 years ago, and it transformed everything for me. It's so difficult and time consuming to set up, but that's just another thing, like you said, of treating your business like a business and investing in those products to, to nurture your clients and give your clients the best experience. If you're a one person show, you can only do so much, and rightfully so. You know, we're not octopi. You would need 20 different arms to be doing all these different things. And so systems are huge, especially nowadays with what's available. It's mind blowing what some of this technology can do just to give your clients this, white glove, world class service where they feel like you are constantly paying attention to only them. But you've really got, this whole nurture system set up, and it's pretty cool.
Especially with the emergence of consumer AI, right? I mean,
Yes.
have you found AI tools to be instrumental in your business and going into 2026?
Life changing. I don't know how I did it without my little friend ChatGPT. And again, we don't know everything. So to be able to even just, creating social media content with it, or I ask ChatGPT, here's what I need to do this week, break it down for me and create a schedule. What should I do each day? I mean, I ask ChatGPT everything. Um, you know,
Yeah.
hate it or love it, it's here, I think, to stay. So might as well adapt and figure out how to use it to give yourself an edge.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I tell you, it's been a game changer, both in my real estate business and I am my own marketing agency as well. I don't want to say I run a marketing agency. You're looking at
Hmm.
the agency right now, uh, but couldn't do it without leveraging AI tools, for
Hmm.
sure. I look at it, I lean on AI as my assistant. So I always, ask Chat or Claude, and I'll say, "Yeah, I produced this blog post. What am I missing?" Or, "Here's a checklist. What would you add? What am I missing?" And just all kinds of things. Or, creating, helping you brainstorm ideas, and it's been very powerful and game changing in my business for sure. So, and not to
Likewise.
mention my content, publishing content. I It has saved me so much time, um,
Yes.
to be able to do it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to do it at the scale at which I'm doing it by myself. So yeah,
Right.
I
And then
love
you can
that.
focus on, sorry,
No, no,
you
go
can
ahead.
focus on, the time. That's a big thing, I think, with AI is that if you can use it well, it can free up so much of your time so that you as the business owner can focus on what moves the needle. And that I think is what is probably most interesting and that I'm fascinated about, just getting it to work more and better for me. Because it's like you said, it's like having an assistant.
Hmm. Yeah, and speaking of which, and speaking of wearing all the hats, and leveraging AI to um, to scale some of the work that we have to do in our day-to-day business. But you mentioned your social media earlier. You do an exceptional job. I only follow your Instagram account. I'm not sure where else you might be, what other channels you might leverage as well. But your Instagram account is awesome. And I wanted to ask you because uh, wearing all the hats can be very can get a business owner or a real estate agent into can really tie us down, can really weigh us down, and lead to loss of productivity and efficiency. What are some things that you delegate, and do you have help with your social media, or do you do that yourself?
So I 2025 was my year of delegating. That's when I hired a virtual assistant to help primarily with social media. And that has been game changing. There's a company that exists that works with, they train their VAs in real estate. So they're specifically focused on real estate virtual assistants. And so they already know the lingo, they know the business, and that's been really helpful. I really try, you can only push to that next level by delegating and opening up more time to, like I said, focus on what moves the needle. So I really try to think about my hourly value. And if the task is something that I can outsource for less than what I my hourly rate is, I outsource it. Things that touch the client directly. I mean, that is one thing I pride myself on is kind of that white glove service. So I will never outsource kind of that intimate client communication. I want them to always feel like they have access to me. But pretty much everything else, I outsource it. So yes, to
Uh,
answer your question, I do have help with my social media. I appreciate the compliment on it. Thank you. I've worked really hard on it the past year and just kind of wanted to go all in on seeing how that would work to make that my main lead source. I was seeing other agents do it, and it just kind of blew my mind that that was a possibility. When I started, everyone talked about door knocking and cold calling, and I did
to
it, but I
cringe.
hated it. Oh, cringe, cringe, cringe. So, social media is something you can do from anywhere. You can be laying in your bed, on an airplane, on a beach, and I love things that work for me when I'm not working. That is figuring out how to optimize things is really what kind of gets me excited. So social media is that for me. And really Instagram is my main focus. I do cross post to TikTok only because, I read something somewhere that said you should, but Instagram is where the majority of my business is. And I think my target buyer, client, seller client, they are on Instagram. I almost 40. I'm not on TikTok. My kids are on TikTok, but yeah, so just being smart about where my focus is, and that's Instagram for me.
I agree. Yeah, knowing your audience, knowing who your ideal client is and where they are, where they're spending their time. I think Instagram's probably the strongest platform right now as far as social media
Hmm.
goes for real estate agent and real estate marketing. Facebook is still relevant as well, but I would say that Instagram's a good place to be putting most of your energy. I also have a habit of asking multiple questions in one question. Somehow I do that, and you did a excellent job of answering that multiple question I just asked you.
Love it.
So very nice. Let's talk a little bit more about marketing and marketing strategy.
Hmm.
New business specifically. Obviously, at this point in your career, a lot of your transactions are a result of your sphere, your database, your previous clients, and referrals, of course, are ever important in
Hmm.
our industry. As with most any high ticket, high trust industry, referrals are uh, a staple of our success. But when it comes to generating new leads, and especially those relocating to the Charleston area from other areas of the country, uh, do you lean on Instagram a lot to spread brand awareness for your business, or are there other ways that you generate buyer leads?
It is 100% Instagram. I really was curious about testing it. And so, like I said, December of 2024, I was like, I am going to just go all in on this Instagram thing and just see if it works. So it worked so well that I got very overwhelmed and realized I needed help. That was kind of what started the conversation with my husband coming on board, getting a VA to help me manage, the communication of all the DMs I was getting. And but yeah, it's 100% Instagram. And I think I love it so much because by the time someone reaches out to me, it is the hottest lead you could possibly get. They've watched my videos, they know my personality, they know what I do, where I serve. It's mostly moms of, 1 to 4 kids that reach out to me. Oh my gosh, your video showed up in my For You page. We've been trying to find a realtor. We feel like we know you already. We're in town next week. Can you show us these 6 homes? I mean, I get that multiple times a week. And again, kind of just breaking down that barrier to entry and figuring out how I can get from A to Z the quickest. I don't know of a better way than social media because by the time they're coming to me, I'm not going to them. I'm just putting out content that I think, me as the mom sitting in Chicago looking at my computer trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I don't even know what the best school is. Where do the young families live? I just constantly am feeding that information to my audience and it slowly started reaching the right people. So 100% Instagram. I Instagram was 25% of my business last year. I'm really hoping to make it 50% this year. And, I think based on what is in the pipeline, that should be achievable. But the biggest thing I would say is, again, 8 to 10 years ago in the industry, you were going after leads. And I think now we have this tool where they come to you. That just blows
Mhm.
my mind. They already know they like and trust you by the time you hear from the client. There's no real converting that has to happen. They converted themselves.
You hit the nail on the head, and that doesn't surprise me at all that you've, uh, I guess, theoretically, it doesn't surprise me that that you've leaned on Instagram for buyer leads, for incoming, for new business. It's awesome to hear how successful it's been. I've often, you know, I hear a lot from marketing experts from real estate and all kinds of different industries as well that um, the impact and the power that video can have on
Hmm.
how on being relatable, on letting prospective clients get to know you, like you, trust you ahead of time. Great way to share valuable educational or informational type content, but and also lifestyle stuff, especially on Instagram. You had talked about door knocking and cold calling earlier, and I firmly believe, and I totally get it. And I think that cold door knocking is just, I'd rather, I don't even know, I can think of a trillion things I'd rather do.
Makes me
But
cringe.
yeah, same with cold calling. However, I will say that there are strategies I think that are very effective for what I would say warm calling and warm door knocking. But yeah, I think that nowadays with the technology that we have available and the reach that social media is such a that's where the attention is, and it's such a great way to introduce yourself to to get them at the very top of that funnel to kind of become aware of your brand and then to start drawing them in. It's just yeah, so much more powerful than and so much more time leveraged than making
Yes.
150 dials a day, right?
That's the big thing. I mean, leveraging your time, I think as a, in real estate, that is another big thing as it would be in any, for any entrepreneur. But you touched on something that I don't want to skip over because I think it's important for agents to hear is just that just because this works for me and I enjoy it doesn't mean it's for you. And if you love door knocking, you should do that. If you love getting in front of people, odds are you have that type of personality where someone is not going to slam the door in your face. You'll you know how to engage them. Or if you love mailers, I mean, I think in our profession, it's so easy to get caught up in, we're constantly bombarded with this agent in Austin, Texas just did, you know, 60 million a year because she has this mailing campaign. All of a sudden I'm typing and spending $100 buying her mailing campaign. I'm like, I don't, that's not even my focus. It's so do one thing and do it so well. Go all in on it that you know the ins and outs of it. You become the expert at it and you're kind of known for that and you'll be successful. I think we delude ourselves a little bit too much, and it's easy to. I'm guilty of it, but that would be my advice, to any agent out there that's trying to make it all work. Just pick one thing. It's so much easier to wrap your head around.
Again, once again, you nailed it, and it reminds me of something that a marketing coach that I used a podcast I listened to years ago for a long, long time. I think he still produces a podcast, but he used to say there's 1,000 ways that we can market our businesses. There's just 1,000 different ways, if not more. And
Hmm.
but the key is to pick one, to pick
Right.
one way and just go all in and give it a chance. Nothing is successful or effective if you only try execute it for a month or 2 months or 3 months. A direct mail postcard campaign, farming certain neighborhoods can be super effective. Might take you 3 years to get there, but if
Right.
you do it consistently enough and with the sound strategy, yeah, of course that'll be successful. So, I totally agree. I think that's 100%. It's very easy. We're bombarded with ads, mostly by marketers. And I am a marketer, but I make fun of
Yes.
marketers all the time. So,
Same.
uh, mostly marketers who just who have a better mousetrap, right? Who have just, they've discovered the hack, the way to get, to overnight success. And it just, time and time again, we know that is just not how you build a real estate business.
Right. Yeah, the hook, the power of the hook. I get sucked in all the time, and I'm always reminded, gosh,
Yeah.
you know, I'm doing it. It's just, and then I get sucked in, to somebody else I'm seeing, which I guess is what it's all about. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Are you a reader, Lauren?
oh, huge reader. Yes, I read probably 5 books a month.
Wow. Excellent. Mostly nonfiction or business
No,
related
mostly
or little,
fiction.
okay.
But then I force myself to, I shouldn't say force. I do try to read one business book a month, but I mostly read fiction. Quick little,
Sure.
it's my, I'm not a huge scroller on Instagram, I think because I'm in it a lot for business. So that's my mental break at the end of the night is reading.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I 100%. I think that's uh, makes a lot of sense and is a great idea. I commend you for 5 books a month. Honestly, it doesn't matter what you're reading. If you're nonfiction or fiction, 5 books a month is just a great way to, just keep, the mind active and to continue to develop our language skills, right? Our reading and writing. I mean, it's
Yes.
fundamentals, right?
Absolutely. That is one thing I like about reading. I have a little list of words I don't know and I'll look them up. But
Yeah.
my mother put me in a speed reading class as a child. And so I do read books probably too quickly. A lot of times I probably didn't retain anything I just read. So it drives my
Mm.
husband nuts because he reads about 5 books a year. But
Hmm.
he is actually probably absorbing the information a little bit better than I am.
What would do you happen to have one or two favorites on the nonfiction side that are related to business off the top of your head? I didn't prep you for this, so sorry to throw you a curveball.
No, I can list off many. I mean, I would say I know this is so trendy, but I loved Let Them,
Hmm.
Mel Robbins' book last year that came out, or it might have been 2 years ago now. It's the simplest principle, but that was really helpful to me. Just her whole let them theory. If somebody wants to talk about you, let them. If somebody wants to be grumpy to you at the grocery store, let them. Just kind of releasing the expectation of you being able to control other people's actions and behaviors. That was much needed for me. I read years ago, but I come back to it often. The Energy Bus,
Hmm.
just one of those super short, very quick to read books, but just one I think everyone should read, whether you're a business owner or not. I made my kids read that. Um, you know, those are probably two of my favorites. I mean, I've probably read any of the popular ones. I'm trying to read, or excuse me, trying to think of what else I've read recently that I really enjoyed, but those are
At
the
some
two that
point,
come
you
to mind.
probably those are two great titles. I haven't read Let Them. Honestly, I probably won't. Not no offense to Mel Robbins,
Yeah.
but I don't think I'm the audience. Energy, but I will have a link in the description, and it has been super popular and well received, for sure. Energy Bus I read a long time ago too. I need to pick that up again. I do need to go back to that. I'll have a link to that, or at least a title and author. Probably not a link. I'll leave it up to listeners to just Google it or jump on Amazon. What about Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Did you at some point read
Oh,
that book?
I did read that. You know what? That's one I should read again. That was actually given to me by my broker when I first started. I'm trying to remember. I need to reread it because I don't remember much
Yeah.
about it, but I remember
Yeah,
enjoying
I
it.
think
It's, I
it's
can tell you right where it's sitting on my bookshelf.
uh, yeah, it's one I actually haven't picked up in a while either. And a guest on the podcast recently um, brought up a point that Gary Keller made in that book at some
Hmm.
point, or some guidelines that he laid out that I had forgotten about. So I need to pick it up and read it again. I had always focused on the three L's, the leads, listings, and leverage. That how the foundations of your business, of a real estate agent's business. And I think without a doubt, whether you're a Keller agent or not, there are some timeless foundational principles that he shares that still apply today for sure. So I think that's
Oh, for
probably one
sure.
that most real estate agents should read.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I think, some people love him, some hate him. I've never been with Keller Williams, but I've always appreciated. I mean, you cannot argue with he's got an uncanny sense of business and relating to people and getting you. Some people are just simplifiers. He can take a big concept and just break it down, and you're like, oh, I can do that. That makes total sense. So yeah, I enjoy his books.
Yeah. The other one that comes to mind, I think, was a book that he authored, co-authored, or collaborated, was The One Thing, which kind of goes
I
back
read that
to
too. I forgot about that one. You're bringing
that,
up some good titles here. Yeah.
and I'm bringing up good titles that I need to read again because it's been a while for any of these. But uh, that's another one that kind of goes back to what you were mentioning earlier, and sharing earlier about the importance of just focusing on one channel when it comes to marketing, and just getting, being very consistent and good at that channel.
Hmm.
Um, I'll have those titles and authors in the description for sure. But Lauren, before I let you go, we're pushing 40 minutes. I only asked you for 30. These always go longer than 30, which is great. I hope you don't mind.
Not at
Um,
all.
I would love for you to share, looking back, if something that you may have wished you knew when you began your real estate career that you know now, for newer agents or those thinking about getting into the industry, but specifically those who are just starting this journey called a real estate career. What's something that you would share with them?
I'm going to say two tips. One is more a tangible, systems type thing, and one is kind of more, you know, existential or whatever. But I think I wish I had from my very first lead put it into one system, whether it's just even at your own spreadsheet, and just being more organized from day one. Because then when you get to the point where you can't manage things just up in your head, it's so time consuming to try to scramble and find all those leads from different pieces of paper and this email or this text message. So just being organized from day one, and taking my own advice and treating it like a business from day one. Um, the other thing I would say, in this it's very competitive here. There's a ton of agents. I know a lot of big markets are like that, but just not comparing yourself to anyone else. there's going to be that new agent that comes into the market and sells 40 million their first year. That's just, that's life. And not thinking you're not designed for this career or you're not doing a good enough job because of that. So just kind of staying in your lane, put the blindfold on, setting goals, of course, but they're your goals, not looking at other people and, thinking that you should be doing what they're doing. I think that's the best way to stay focused and stay motivated is just, keeping your head down and focusing on you and your business.
Yeah, I love both of those pieces of advice, those tips, and especially the second one, which I think is so important that we really focus on our own definition of success and our own goals and
Hmm.
just focus on those, worry about those, and don't get down on ourselves or pivot, adjust our goals based on what somebody else may or may not be accomplishing. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I agree. That's great. Lauren, for listeners who are in other areas of the country, have clients that they're listing homes for people that plan on moving to the low country of South Carolina, the beautiful Charleston, how can they learn more about you and connect with you?
The best way is probably my Instagram. I have everything linked there just with one link in my bio. You can find my website, you can find my reviews, you can submit a request for information. And my Instagram is Lauren E. Delamater. It's very long, but it is phonetic. It is spelled just like it sounds. So search Lauren E. Delamater, you'll find me. And yes, I welcome your referrals. I love, that's always the best thing, just waking up to a text from an agent in another part of the country. So love that. Would love to help your clients if you're out there, or just give me a follow. I love collaborating with other agents and learning from you guys out there. So
You do love collaborating, as you proved by joining this podcast, which I greatly appreciate. It's at Lauren E. Delamater. Don't overthink that last name like I did
no,
when we opened
everybody
this
does.
episode. I'll tag you, of course, on Instagram when we release this episode. And
Amazing.
Lauren, really, really appreciate you joining the podcast. Thanks again so much.
Oh, thank you. I loved every minute of it.